I don't know what this video is going to be. I can easily see two potential scenarios where either it creates a lot of interesting conversations and engagement, asks people some interesting questions, or it's just gonna be an inflammatory mess. And I guess we're going to find out. I want to start this with some major disclaimers. I am mainly coming from a perspective of trying to describe personal experiences, right? I may start talking in ways of like, if you play this game, it encourages this sort of skill set, this kind of behavior, kind of talking about like this is causing this, unintentional. I don't think I can prevent myself from slipping up on that because I'm describing it in a way of this caused this for me. But I'm not trying to describe something like, oh, Fire Emblem fans are insufferable because it's... Well, that's not the point of the video. If there are things I do genuinely believe and kind of want to make a statement about, I will try to make a note of such. Even all that said, I think I'm, at best, grossly oversimplifying here. Don't take this as a way of me claiming that I am right. I'm mostly just sharing this because I think these sorts of questions are important to ask ourselves for people who use a lot of social media and play a lot of games. And that said, I am expecting some pushback on this. I think that's honestly healthy. I'm going to be making some harsh statements. To be frank, I'll just state this right here. The major point of this video is saying that looking back on a life playing video games, using social media, participating in video game communities, I kind of regret it to the extent that I did. And that's what we're talking about here. Why am I making this a video? I've been gone for months. Why this? For these past, gonna say 2 years, and especially the last 6 months, my life has completely changed. Like, dramatically so. For the better. It's been great. Working at a steelyard taught me a lot of important discipline skills that kind of helped me get my life back on track. I'm back in school, doing well. Things are looking up. But with that progress has come a ton of just reminiscence, looking back over where I've been in my life, where I want to go, kind of just the through lines between them, and it's calling a lot of things into question. Why did this take me so long? What do I want to carry over from my life as it's been? And what role do video games, which have dominated my life thus far, play moving forward? Why do I seek them out? What am I gaining from them? What needs are they fulfilling? Why are those needs not being filled in my life? Is it actually working? And the million-dollar question, the reason I'm turning this into a video, because I think it's an important question to ask, am I sabotaging my ability to fulfill those needs in other ways, in real life, because I'm satisfying them through the internet, through games, through media? So let's talk about it. Taking a step back to the bigger picture, why are games just so good? Because they are just so good. There's a lot of ways to answer those questions, but I'd argue, just to kind of boil things down, they take various experiences you can have throughout life and condense them in a way that you can get the satisfaction of doing those sorts of actions very quickly and very reliably. Like if you want to build something, to do that in real life, you gotta go like buy the building materials, buy all the tools you need, find a place where you can do it. Anything on a larger scale, you're probably gonna need some sort of like architectural degree, and that's just so many steps. Even on a small scale, Legos are expensive. Or you can just boot up Minecraft, boot up Terraria, and have a pretty cool creation in like an hour or two. In terms of time investment, video games are one of the most efficient ways of feeling that kind of satisfaction of accomplishing something. And it rewards you for doing so. The better you get at a game, the better it feels. Progression systems, leveling up, climbing your way through leaderboards, getting a high score, beating your past time on a speed run. That feels amazing. And it's so easy to access. If you want to compete with somebody in, like, let's say basketball, you gotta organize a group of people, you gotta go travel to wherever you're playing. It's exhausting, you gotta go shower afterwards. Or you can just boot up a game of League of Legends. It automatically matchmakes you to people who want that similar experience of competing so they can win. On top of that, there's a heavy escapism aspect. Being able to enter fantastical worlds, experience crazy stories. And they're better at that than anything else. I can get lost in a book, I can get lost in a movie, but in a game, you are the one who is taking those actions. This is something that is happening to you, if you can get immersed enough. If there's something bad happening in your life right now, or you just need a break from stress, play a video game. You can get away for a bit. And by doing so, by finding something you click with and connect with, you can go online, find a bunch of people who connected in the same way, and it's just instant bond. Literally matchmakes you to friends. It's wonderful. And there's so much more I could talk about, but like you get the point. And for most of my life, I have enjoyed video games tremendously for all of these aspects. I've enjoyed being part of communities surrounding games for all of these aspects. But in recent years, recent months, it's hard not to notice how fleeting all of those feelings are unless I am in the moment of feeling them. I'm going to use Stardew Valley as an example. You have two paths. One, you can go outside, do some gardening, grow some food, and it's going to take forever to see any results from that. Or you can manage an entire farm. Watch as this dilapidated town blooms and grows and flourishes, capturing that same feeling of investing into something and seeing it grow, but so much faster and on such a larger scale. But it's only in the game. And in the meantime, a lot of the tertiary elements of gardening, that kind of stuff that's healthy for you, that's not happening. You're not absorbing sunlight, you're not getting vitamin D. You're getting that same feeling of accomplishment, but with none of the other benefits that you would have gathered from getting there. But the feeling's the same. The strongest part of that process is the same. So why do the real thing? Like, this isn't an active choice that people are making. It's just that when you have such a guaranteed return on investment, something that once you have the game, there's no extra expenses, there's nothing that can really go wrong. Like, it's effortless to avoid the real thing. It's uncomfortable outside, I don't want to deal with bugs. We're in a drought right now, I should save the water. Your brain is measuring how you should spend your time. This decision will get the good feeling in the fastest way. It's the logical thing to do. And all those real benefits kinda just slip away. Just real quick, I'm not meaning to single out Stardew Valley here. It's a beautiful, wonderful game. I love it so much. I'm not trying to say like, oh, this is so unhealthy, you should go outside instead. I could do this kind of exercise with so many different games. I'm really just trying to introduce you guys to the kind of thought process I've been going through the last couple of months. Great game. Wonderful developer. I would recommend it. But you see the point I'm trying to make here. So many of the experiences that video games kind of advertise to people, the satisfaction that you get from them, are derived from a lot of real things. But by playing the games, you're not getting a lot of the passive benefits that you do from partaking in these sorts of activities, but you still get that same feeling of satisfaction. Exploring in Breath of the Wild doesn't give you the healthy benefits of exerting yourself through hiking, doesn't provide the psychological benefits of being out in nature, but you still kind of get that wonder of seeing grand vistas and trying to find secret crannies. It's spoofing that satisfaction. And I'm gonna be a broken record saying this over and over throughout this video. I'm not saying that's inherently a bad thing. Enjoyable things don't have to be useful in other areas of your life. But can you see where I'm getting with this? When you have this avenue to do so many different things, experience so many different ways of feeling satisfaction that are far, far faster than doing those sorts of things in real life, it starts to constrict. Oh, I want to feel like I'm making some progress in my life. Let's play some Monster Hunter for a bit, hunt some bigger things, create some better armors. And that progress feels great, but it only really matters in the game. So when you want to go get that feeling again, you gotta go back to the game. Otherwise it's useless, because in its entirety, that's where that feeling is built off of. And that's not to say that video games are completely useless. There are useful skills that you can learn from them, that you can practice with them, but they're not necessarily the ones that the game is advertising to you. I'm gonna use Fire Emblem as an example. Now, there's all sorts of reasons that you might enjoy Fire Emblem, but a big one for me is that kind of tactician fantasy. That sort of feeling of leading a grand army, overcoming impossible odds, while keeping everybody alive. I like feeling smart after getting my units out of a tough situation, but I will admit, there's also a bit of a leadership power fantasy there, especially in the games that really gas up the player. Like, oh, Byleth, you're so great. It's like, it's embarrassing, but that does raise the ego a little bit there. The problem is, the skills that Fire Emblem teaches you, the kind of atmosphere it creates, aren't really conducive with those fantasies. Like, when you really boil it down, Fire Emblem is just a lot of simple arithmetic that you have to keep track of at once, and a bunch of, like, basic rock, paper, scissors interactions. And it does take some kind of intelligence to be able to do that, but not in that sort of leadership style. That's more micromanaging. And if anybody's had a micromanaging leader for whatever they're working on, fucking insufferable. Oh my god. So while it presents this kind of tactician, leading an army, overcoming all odds fantasy, it's really just training you to be a pretty good accountant. Those sorts of skills are great for, like, being a barista and keeping track of a bunch of different orders, but skills like being able to connect with people, being able to inspire them, narratively it does that. So you do get the satisfaction of doing that, seeing people in the story react to your actions. But I would argue, and, like, again, this is not causality here, but the skills it's encouraging, that it's reinforcing, aren't particularly conducive to leaders you enjoy being around. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that all Fire Emblem fans are bad leaders. But if you could somehow quantify the people skills of every single fandom across media, I would expect Fire Emblem to be lower than average. I'm sorry. I will make that statement. Because it's also kind of finicky with how you, like, manage interactions between people. And, like, just because I was mean right there, I will throw myself under the bus in terms of, like, fantasies a game presents to you versus skills that it builds. I've romanced a lot of women in video games, and I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, it has not helped. Putting all these characters on a singles title was a mistake. This says a lot about me. I'm not gonna make a big thing about this, because, like, I don't have any data here. This is a much broader topic. But if I was put in charge of a scientific experiment that was analyzing people who play a lot of video games and how they interact with characters there versus how they interact with people in real life, I would hypothesize that there is something about how games quantify relationships, platonic and romantic. The kind of guaranteed return investment. Like, that's gotta fuck with your head at least a little bit. It's got to. It's not gonna cause antisocial behavior, but just kinda trend, like 5% in that direction. Not a big deal, but there's a lot of aspects of social media and video games that have similar 5% trends. Kind of building off of that, going back to the question of what needs are these experiences fulfilling for me, I want to talk a bit about the emotional connections that we forge with media. And I want to be careful about this, because I know that this is a topic that people have, like, core memories that have wildly impacted their lives. I want to respect that. And I do think that video games are valuable for that. Because of what I was talking about earlier, when you are really immersed in a game, the things that happen in the game are happening to you. So if something happens that resonates with you, that mirrors something that's happened in your real life, oh my god, that can feel that can be life-changing. Toss out a few examples. Disco Elysium. I've been a severe alcoholic for a huge portion of my adult life. Sober for several months now, though. Yay me. Don't know if it'll stay that way. I'm not committed to it, but, like, want to drink for healthier reasons, you know? And if you've played that game, the protagonist has a lot of drug issues, and that hit me so hard. Just kind of that sort of introspection of just like, God, do I really want to be this later in my life? I had to stop playing because it was hitting me. Other examples. I love Wind Waker so much because I have younger sisters. That game starting off with your sister being kidnapped and kind of building that desire to save her, like fucking hell, that hits me so hard. Last one I'll bring up is Persona 4. The Hanged Man Confidant, tackling the subject of when something bad happens in your life, how everyone around you will start coddling you and how maddening that is. I hadn't really been exposed to a piece of media that did that before playing that game. I couldn't really even word it before playing that game. I will outright say that it genuinely benefited me to be able to put to words that frustration and try to work around it. I am not saying that these things are bad. Absolutely not. They can teach things about yourself. They can connect you with others that share similar values like that. That is a good thing. If it leads to something more. And I want to talk about my experience with Undertale here, as an example. Undertale came out, what? 2017? Let me check that. 2015. Right, okay. So that was, what? 2 years after I dropped out of school. I was in a rough shape at that period of my life. Future prospects had fallen apart. I'd lost pretty much every social connection apart from my immediate family. I was miserable, and there didn't seem to be any light at the end of that tunnel. So along comes a game that is kind of built from the ground up around the idea of just trying to make connections with people and make their lives better. That no matter what, there is always a way to resolve a problem with mercy, peacefully. Adding on to all of that, I think Toby Fox is just genuinely good at taking various insecurities, various problems you might be having, giving them a voice, and then telling that voice what it would want to hear to make it feel better. That was exactly what I needed in that period of my life, and it quickly rose to be one of my favorite games because of that. I love Undertale. But outside of the game, I was still in that same situation. I didn't have any prospects. I was socially isolated, and I had not yet developed the skills, developed the fire to try to fight my way out of that. So where does that love go? Where does that connection go? it's stuck. In a similar way that those feelings of progress, of competition, really don't translate outside of games, where else does this matter? Not to say that it can't matter outside of games, just gave examples of ones where it did. But this was something that hit me so hard that I was completely unequipped to do anything with. And thus, the only real recourse is to try to dig back in to that same connection. Connect those feelings with themselves. Consume reactions, music covers, fanfiction, fan art, anything to get that same feeling back. I fully believe that the reason the Undertale fanbase is so infamously toxic is because of this. Like, sure, it has the same sorts of problems that all internet communities have, but I'd be willing to bet there is a massive chunk of that audience that don't just want people to play the game in the way that they want to see. They need them to. Because they need to see them have that same reaction to the thing that mattered to them so much, so they can feel it again. Because this is the only source that feeling has come from. I've had a lot of pieces of media do something like this in my life. Some pretty recently, where there'll be some sort of realization about where my head is at, or see a connection between two characters that I desperately want in my own life, and there's no real-world equivalent, so it just feeds back into itself. And when you already have the thing that is giving you the good feelings, why search for something real? Objectively, finding something like that in the real world would be better, would make you feel better, because it is real. It can branch off and lead to other things. But it takes time. It's not guaranteed. It's scary. And when you're in that sort of mindset, where you're already stuck in your life, I think experiences like this can easily prevent you from making any real progress. By filling that need in fantasy, the need will go unmet in reality. Because how do you connect with people in that way? You forge the path of where that connection leads. If it's not done through the same path, you're just wandering lost. This is not a very happy video. So let's talk about a different emotion, shall we? Frustration. Anger. League of Legends. What does happen when humans can express frustration with zero social consequence? When you're not around the people that get to see how you really feel? I'll tell you what, some pretty pathetic behavior. Before I say this, reminding, I'm talking about my experiences. I'm saying this while thinking back to times I have bruised my own leg punching it after dying in League of Legends. Without people around physically to kind of keep those emotions in check, it just comes out. And it's bad. And because it's online, because it's just in front of the screen, something fascinating happens. Because, like, if somebody does this in sports, unless they're, like, super famous and can get away with anything, there's consequences for freaking out. Their reputation is damaged. They get kicked off the team. But not only is there none of that online, the way that kind of online competitive games have developed over the decades has almost glamorized it. By streaming and showing people just these kind of insane temper tantrums at something going wrong, it normalizes that. That's the reaction you're supposed to have. That's the reaction that all these famous people are having. You can be successful. There isn't a consequence for losing control. for having the most extreme reaction you can. In fact, the ones that have the more extreme reactions tend to be more successful. So that's become the norm. And that norm is insufferable in real life. This has probably been the hardest realization for me. Just looking back over my life, looking how I kind of avoided trying to be better for so long, I kind of just always chalked it up for a fear of conflict, but it's not that. It's because I've had so many online arguments, I've slammed a desk so many times while playing competitive games, that I've just got really shitty conflict management skills. Again, not necessarily causality, but out of everything that I'm talking about here, this is the one I'm pretty sure is the closest to that. Like, stepping away from video games for a second, just being online, heavily reactive, you either like something or you dislike something, and the more extreme reactions to those things get more engagement. That's not how you talk to people in real life. It's pedal to the metal constantly. And you take that sort of attitude into the real world and people just don't want to deal with you. And yes, of course, that can happen in online communities, but the consequence is meaningless. If you fuck up in real life, the pressure of that mistake will weigh on you, will push you to learn and get better. Hard as that is. You fuck up online, you can just find a new community that accepts your poor behavior, or just make a new account and start over. The social environment that helps people become better versions of themselves is just, this is another thing I should have put a note to be careful about, because again, this means a lot to people, but it's such a twisted way of interacting with people, because so much of the internet, so much of online communities is about creating, and I hate to use the word because it's charged, but a safe space to be. Somewhere where you can just be yourself. But nobody is without flaw. And depending on what age you really seriously started escaping to games and online forums and such, there's a lot of those hard lessons that you'd learn in social environments that just aren't being learned. So the self-improvement just kind of hits a wall. Do you argue very belligerently and refuse to back down? Do you have a hard time controlling your temper? Is there a part of your mind that's been kicked by the world enough that there's just a bit of satisfaction in causing frustration in others? Reminding again, this is me I'm talking about. And again, not causality, but looking back over the last 20 or so years that I've been using the internet, I think a big part of why I never really dealt with those things is because I didn't have to. And in the meantime, the real people around me are maturing. They're dealing with that kind of childish behavior. And pretty soon, the people online are the only ones who will put up with your bullshit. I think one of the worst things about this aspect of the internet is that it really screws over, like, minority communities. Those with mental illness and LGBT especially. Because depending on where you live, you might be somewhere that just isn't willing to accept you, would outright persecute you. So the internet is the only place you can go to really connect with people. Meaning the only place you can go is the place that's teaching these poor social habits that people in real life can't stand. And by finding places that accept you, it starts to normalize that acceptance. You start to build off of it. But because that progress is being made in isolation, it gets further and further. I'm not going to cut this out. I could so easily cut this part out of the video, but I'm not going to. I've committed. If I'm off base here, I want to be called out for it. But because that progress is being made in isolation, I think it moves to a point that it becomes inaccessible to the average person. Like, this corner of the internet is on step 6 in terms of supporting this group of people, but that's step 6. The average person is still struggling with step 1. I'm not saying that's fair. I'm not saying it's right. But I do think that's happening, and I think the unhealthy social environments that the internet creates is a big part of why. Because it's easy to feel accepted on the internet. The usernames you're interacting with, the people that you are messaging, you're only seeing like 5% of who they are. Your brain's gotta fill in the rest. And I do believe that's what makes things like Discord, like YouTube, any sort of social media so addictive. Because if you can find someone that at least tolerates you, it will feel like whatever social environment you want to be in. I have interacted with so many people online where, after connecting with video games, there will be just an immediate next step into whatever the most severe thing they're dealing with in their life right now is. And I've done that myself on many occasions. And I think that's a major symptom of what I've been talking about here. Being in my situation, relying so heavily on media and the communities that surround it, I've been so desperate to just get that stuff out. Just to have that issue be seen, have somebody care. That the moment some form of connection is made, oh, we both like Kirby? Let me just really quick use this as a time to talk about the general repressive nature of being part of a religious community that you don't believe in. I have done that. A little bit of that got into this video. And when that's how you kind of make those connections, how the fuck do you feel comfortable around people in any other environment other than games? That's called oversharing. You're not supposed to do that in real life. It scares people off. So now we're here. I'm looking back on 2 years of genuine self-improvement, where I've dealt with so many of these issues, broken apart where I've made these sorts of connections with various feelings and filled them up with something real, something better. For the last time, correlation does not equal causation. But holy fuck, is there a lot of correlation going on here. I just look back on how heavily I have relied on media. I have relied on video games. I have drowned in social media. And I've looked at the personal problems, the personal flaws I've worked through in therapy, my struggles with connecting with other people in real life. And just, I'm doing the little wires thing in Among Us. Everything is connecting between these same two categories. And it's... there's really only one conclusion. I'm not saying that video games are horrendously bad for you. I'm not saying that the internet communities you care about are bad for you. But I think I can safely state that they have been bad for me. Because the moment I started asking these questions of myself, the moment I started bringing in those questions into therapy, almost immediate improvements. Like, people say, like, oh, you can't fix your life easily. Like, no, like, it was a hard few months, but as soon as that connection was made and I started working from that perspective, oh my god, things got better. And it just makes me wish that I'd asked these sorts of questions. That maybe I'd seen a video talking about these sorts of questions, so I could have worked on them earlier. and started living a happier life a lot sooner. So, with all that information in place, like, moving forward? Next steps? When I ask myself, what kind of role should games play in my life? How should I use social media? It kind of feels the obvious answer is to just don't. Imagine the power play, though. If I edited this the way I think I'm gonna edit this, oh, that would be such a mic drop. But like, isn't that just a cop-out? Isn't that doing the same thing I've been complaining about? Just, oh, this sort of community doesn't give me what I want out of life. Let's just toss it all aside and only interact with the places that I want to interact. That feels hypocritical to me. And it's not like everything I've been talking about is exclusively bad. It's just been bad for me. And with all due respect, if you're deep enough into the internet to be watching a video like this, there's probably at least shades of what I've been talking about that apply to you too. I'm just saying. But again, social media can do good things. Video games can be healthy for you. They just... I'm tempted to say they need to be done in moderation, but I feel like that's just the surface level of tackling it. I think it's more that you just need to be honest with yourself about why you're seeking them out, and asking if that feeling it's giving you, that need it's fulfilling, is blocking you from finding something healthier. Because once you start approaching games from that perspective, it gets a lot easier to better balance your time with them. Because you recognize, like, oh, seeking out a match in Smash Brothers because I want to feel like I'm winning a bit in my life. Why am I not feeling like that? Oh, it's because my life sucks. And winning a game in Smash Brothers is not going to help. Like, you still need to make the hard decisions of what the fuck to do after that point, but like, now that I'm on the other side, that's a very necessary bridge to start making to be able to, like, get your life to a better place. And life does get to a better place, like, seriously. I'm sure I could just step away from YouTube, from games entirely, but, like, this is where the people are. I remember, oh gosh, I can't remember the dude's name. We're gonna get a little political here, I'm sorry. There was a scientist, I believe this was on the topic of vaccinations, who was invited on some huge I think it was Joe Rogan, to debate with somebody that would argue against vaccinations. And the scientist didn't do it. And he later explained on a different podcast that he didn't want to normalize this idea that science is done through those sorts of debates. That the correctness of science is based on whoever has the best zinger, who dominates the discussion. And he is right. Science is data-driven, peer-reviewed, heavily experimented on, requires expertise to have a valuable opinion on it. That's a flag-out plant. The perception of science, though, is rapidly moving away from that, though. And sure, you can choose not to interact with that. You can choose to only stay in the world that best represents your values, but in the meantime, that other world still exists, and you've just removed a conflicting voice from it. And I kind of want to stick around on YouTube because of that, if only because what kind of gaming YouTuber is going to talk about all the ways that games aren't really healthy for you? That's why would you do that? Let me just set fire to my source of income real quick. So moving forward on YouTube, I don't want to move fully away from stuff like Peasant's Perspective, Roundtable Relays. I do think encouraging that sort of just out-of-the-box thinking, that's generally healthy. That's a useful skill to have in life. But for my own content, I don't want to fuel escapism anymore. Because what this channel has been in the past is taking something like video games, which is already escapism, and escaping from the escapism. What else could be in these games that's not there now? Not saying that's a bad thing, but I think I'd like to do stuff that encourages a bit more useful behavior. Something that can be built off of. I put the thumbnail for the Age of Mythology video here, because I had to talk a bit about religion. That's a serious topic, how it's represented in media. That had teeth. I had to Google shit for that. Stuff like that does still light that fire in me to create. And frankly, just kind of talking about the skills that a game advertises you versus the skills that it actually teaches you, like, I enjoyed that. That kind of feels like potentially a fun series, I don't know. Although if it keeps straying too far in that direction, I might separate channel those kinds of more serious videos and keep this exclusively for, like, roundtable relays and peasants' perspectives and whatnot. And you know what? Let's just get this out of the way. Next weekend, not this one, but the next one, we'll do a peasant's perspective. I'll put a link in the description of this video. This is the announcement. We'll finally get around to that again. I'm sorry I haven't been doing them lately. School's hard. And I think that's going to be how things are moving forward. I want to devote more of my energy towards productive stuff. And most of that is just off the internet entirely. I think there is still value in my life trying to maintain a community where I'm interacting with a lot of people that is useful to me, builds skills, and I can entertain people. That's fun. But I want it to be valuable for the people watching, too. More than just escapist entertainment. And I think after a video like this, you can understand why. So what do we do next? I don't fucking know, but we'll figure it out as we go. See you next weekend. I believe it'll be the 21st. The details will be more specific in the description of the video. Farewell, everybody. Take care.